Hi there, Mike McArthur from the Oshkosh Public Library, ready with some more Librarian Learns. This is the series where I take a look at a piece of Oshkosh history that I've been asked about while working at the library, or I've just wondered about myself as I live my life here. This month, I've done something very noble, and I've handed my job off to an intern who is here with us this summer. Her name is Lily McK, and she is a public history major and here with us this summer. And she has put together a fantastic video on the history of the 1919 World War I Victory Arch, which spanned over Main Street. So she'll be jumping into the history of the arch and the units that it was there to memorialize. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lily.
The Great War, as it was named, began in 1914 between Austria-Hungary and Serbia. But despite the war's origins half a world away, World War I involved hundreds of soldiers from right here in Oshkosh. Unlike neighboring cities like Appleton and Fond du Lac, Oshkosh uniquely housed two Wisconsin National Guard units, Company B and Company C. On August 6, 1917, only a few months after President Wilson's declaration of war, Oshkosh said their tearful goodbyes before the Guard headed for Camp Douglas. Company C of the 42nd Rainbow Division became Oshkosh's first unit to arrive overseas in October 1917, and Company B of the 32nd Red Arrow Division followed close behind, arriving in Brest, France in March of 1918. Over the course of their service, Companies B and C experienced the dangers of trench warfare. They dodged bullets, artillery shells, mustard gas, and the influenza epidemic, and when relieved from frontline duty, they marched for miles on end through rain and the resulting ankle-deep mud. Major George O'Connell of the 127th Infantry commended the soldiers of Company B, writing, "Although you were on the march for many days without proper food or clothing or places to sleep, you never complained but continued on until it was completed." Their fine spirit, despite the hardships of war, became characteristic of Oshkosh soldiers. With all that being said, on November 11, 1918, Armistice Day came as a breath of relief for Oshkosh soldiers who had served over 14 months in France and Germany. Company B sang On Wisconsin Through No Man's Land, and Company C cracked jokes around the first open campfires they'd had in months. While Oshkosh soldiers occupied Germany following the war's end, preparations began on the home front to welcome back their boys in uniform. Oshkosh citizens considered the city's first proposal to build a Victory Bridge, which we would recognize as the Jackson Street Bridge, too grandiose. In response, the Oshkosh Daily Northwestern newspaper suggested to eliminate the open draw, elevate the center of the structure into a splendid victory arch. And from then on, plans to build an arch stuck. In April 1919, retired National Guard members hired architect Henry Aller to design the victory arch that would straddle Main Street. Geraldine McDonald was chosen to model the statue placed on top, and the Cook and Brown Lime Company provided the building material. Using labor from every available Oshkosh man, construction on the Main Street arch began in early May. Simultaneously, two small-scale arches were built for the company's respective armories. One in the front of Armory B on the corner of Merritt and Jefferson, and the other in front of Armory F for Company C on South Main Street and 10th Avenue, which had not been photographed. And after weeks of hard work, on May 16th and 17th, 1919, Oshkosh welcomed Companies B and C home. Oshkosh soldiers paraded down Main Street, through the Victory Arch towards the armories, where they were met yet again by another arch. Captain John Spencer, speaking on behalf of Company B, told the Oshkosh Daily Northwestern newspaper to tell the Oshkosh people how much they appreciated the fine welcome, and referring to the beautiful decorations and the fine arch, described Oshkosh's welcome celebration as perfectly wonderful, and that their hearts were too full to express themselves. But despite the time and labor the city put into their supposedly permanent monument, the Main Street arch began to deteriorate months after its erection. In October and November of 1919, discussions suggested the relocation of the arch to either Menominee or Riverside Park. It was even offered to the County Fair Committee to be placed on the fairgrounds. But either the arch's physical decay or the monetary cost to move the structure deterred the committee from accepting the city's proposition. After unsuccessfully scraping the responsibility of maintaining the arch onto its parks, the Main Street Victory Arch was ultimately destroyed on December 11, 1919. Although the city's three victory arches have disappeared, as well as the two National Guard armories, Oshkosh still remembers the boys of Companies B and C through their respective memorial parks. Predominantly known as a boat launch and playground, Rainbow Memorial Park memorializes the soldiers of the 42nd Rainbow Division that fought during the World Wars. Since 1921, after Oshkosh citizens' failed attempt to rename South Park Rainbow Park, the name floated around before the current site's construction in 1949. Oshkosh didn't forget about Company B of the 32nd Red Arrow Division either. Tucked between Garbage Hill, the skate park, and Pollock Pool, the Veterans Club dedicated Red Arrow Park to World War veterans in 1962. In 1971, a 12-foot-tall red granite arrow was erected, but after a violent storm toppled it over a week later, the one we see today was reestablished in 1975.
So hey, I learned something. I literally did. I did not realize there were 3 victory arches. Anyway, if you like these videos and want to see more, hit like, hit subscribe, share, try to find it even though Facebook and Google are burying these kind of videos now. But share them with your friends and let me know at the library if you like what we're doing. And with that, I will see you later.